Hello and welcome to yet another interesting discussion. So today our topic is the classification of living organisms. Now you might be aware that there are millions and millions of species that are found on the planet Earth. In fact, scientists estimate that there are up to 8.7 million species that exist on Earth. And in fact, this number is an estimation because if we consider that there are yet to be discovered species which are also so abundant, in fact, some scientists go as far to claim that there could be more species than there are, stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy. And so that gives you an estimation and understanding of the variety of living organisms that exist. And so this makes our topic for today very, very interesting. And we need to know how to classify organisms. And just to give you a background of what we are talking about, you know that when you're talking about biology, we are basically talking about the study of living organisms. And so I've given an idea of this variety of living organisms that exist on Earth. And the name that we use to describe this variety of living organisms on Earth is biodiversity. Bio means life, and then diversity means a variety. And so simply put, biodiversity refers to the variety of living organisms that exist. And like I've mentioned, because there are so many of these living organisms that exist, it makes it impossible for scientists to study them easily, and hence the need to classify them. And hence the topic for today, classification of living organisms. And so you might ask, what is classification? Simply put, to classify things is to arrange them in an orderly manner. Okay? And so scientifically, we say classification is a process of sorting organisms into groups based on particular similarities and differences. All right? And in fact, I should say that classification is an inherent part of humans. We classify things in our everyday life. Okay? We have learned to classify people according to their economic status. We have learned to classify people according to their region, maybe. We have learned to classify people according to their, these political beliefs and ideologies. And so when you're talking about classification, it's something that we do on a daily basis. It's just a process of sorting organisms or species into groups based on their similar features, okay, or characteristics. And that's how come I was giving examples that we classify things every day. We can classify people based on their economic status. I've got the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. We have ordered them to say, oh, these belong to this particular class. And so when you're talking about organisms, we can group them into specific groups based on their unique characteristics. Now, classification is just but a component of one of the important fields of biology that we refer to as the taxonomy. So taxonomy is a branch of biology that deals with the description, identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. And so in taxonomy, there are those components, okay, and you can see classification is one of the components of taxonomy. All right, just like we have got, different branches of biology that you might be familiar with, say anatomy. We also have this important branch of biology referred to as the taxonomy. So taxonomy is one that deals with describing organisms, identifying them. Nomenclature means naming them, and of course, classifying them. All right, and so you might ask to say, what then, or what is the importance of talking about the classification of living organisms? Well, it makes the study of this variety of organisms that I've talked about to be easy. And also it helps us to understand what relationships or the interrelationships that exist among the different organisms. It also provides a system of cataloging taxa, and so we need to group them into the different groups. And also, for a long time, we need to understand that the classification of organisms was based on the recognition of two superkingdoms. Okay, in other words, all the living organisms were basically put into two major groups. Okay, and these groups, that was historically, they were known as one superkingdom prokaryota and secondly superkingdom eukaryota. That is how they were understood at the beginning. So everything that is known in this world as living organisms, they were simply classified or grouped into two major groups. That we're saying prokaryota as well as the eukaryota. Okay, but that was before the advancement of science. But now since science has advanced and new technique or technologies have been discovered, it has made this science to advance. And so now we have what we refer to as a new classification system. In the new classification system, we recognize the existence of three major groups. The three major groups are referred to as the domains. So initially, we used to talk about superkingdoms, but now we talk about the domains. So what are the domains that exist? There is the domain bacteria, the domain eukarya, and the domain archaea. So there are these three domains that exist in which the organisms have been put now. All right. In the old classification system, the classification was entirely based on morphological and anatomical features, meaning based on how they appear outside, and then also on their some anatomic features such as the nature of the heart, how it is. For instance, is it one chambered, is it two chambered, and so on and so forth. But now it goes beyond just the morphology and anatomy. It also goes into the molecular techniques, whereby there is use of DNA now to associate particular organism, to see how close related the two organisms are. There's also analysis of a DNA to show how similar this organism is to the other one. Initially, the two superkingdoms of prokaryota and eukaryota, we had all the prokaryotes. By prokaryotes, I mean organisms that have a prokaryotic cell. They were simply grouped in one particular superkingdom, which was known as superkingdom prokaryota. But in the new classification system, this has been separated into two different domains that we refer to as the domain archaea and the domain bacteria. And so we notice that the advancement of science has brought to light that there are some differences that exist even in between the prokaryotes, and this necessitated the formation of the two different domains, which is the domain archaea as well as the domain bacteria. Right. So let's just have an idea of what we are talking about when we talk about these super kingdoms, about these domains. The domain bacteria essentially consists of all those microorganisms that were basically in the superkingdom prokaryota before. Okay, so what are these organisms that we're talking about? We're talking about very minute microscopic organisms that include the bacteria, and the related species. These consist of the prokaryotic cell, but they are different from those that are found in the domain archaea, because the domain archaea also consists of the prokaryotes. But the difference is the nature of the cell wall that surrounds the the bacteria is different from the cell wall that surrounds um, the organisms under the domain archaea, and hence the need for them to separate them. Okay. The domain archaea consists of ancient things. In fact, I must mention that the domain archaea includes organisms that were the first to be discovered on Earth. And so these are the ancient organisms from which all the other organisms evolved. All right, and then we also have got the domain eukarya. So under the domain eukarya, we have got 4 kingdoms. That includes the kingdom Protista, kingdom Plantae, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Animalia. So to give you an idea, the kingdom Animalia is where all the organisms that we refer to as the animals, they fall under this particular kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Fungi includes, the fungi and all those. The common example of a fungi is basically mushroom, because that's what most of us are familiar to. But I must mention that the kingdom fungi also includes very tiny microscopic organisms such as yeast. The kingdom Plantae includes all the plants that we see around us. That ranges from the microscopic ones to the macroscopic ones. The kingdom Protista essentially consists of very tiny eukaryotic organisms that are mostly unicellular, and they are found in aquatic environments. An example of a protist is a malaria-causing organism, the Plasmodium. Plasmodium, is one such an organism that we can basically refer to as a protist. All right, and so we have given examples of what is found under the kingdom Eubacteria. Basically consists of bacteria, such as the ones that are disease-causing, and the ones that are also the ones found in the gut, are all examples of organisms under the U. Thank you.